Howdy Hexers, I'm Infamous Neo and welcome to Limit Break. Today we're looking at an archetype that likely needs no introduction. Bloodwild Deathcry is a powerful force in both constructed and limited. It is a very versatile deck that has lines of play with many different endgames. The deck can be aggressive, it can swarm out the opponent, and it can also be a defensive turtle. And it can do all this while still being a card advantage powerhouse with a ton of control options. The most important card for this deck in my opinion is Blight Cultivator. This guy is a 4-cost 3/4 that can trigger the Deathcries of one of your troops in play. Obviously this card needs you to have Deathcry effects in order to be useful, and you can play Deathcry effects without it. However, this card will really take things up a notch for this archetype, allowing you to trigger those Deathcry effects without needing your troop to die, and perhaps, more importantly, triggering them more than once. Now, this card is common, so even though I say it's the most important card, there is a troop I would take over this in a draft. Blight Paladin is a Bloodwild 2/2 for 2 with lethal. What you're really after though here is its Deathcry effect. When this thing triggers, it can target a troop, and if you control that troop, it gets +2/+2. If you don't, it gets -2/-2. Trading this guy for a high value troop using its lethal effect is already good, but using its debuff afterwards to then take out another troop is incredible value. I rarely use the buff on this card, in fact taking out an opponent's troop is almost always better. Of course, if you also add Blight Cultivator into the mix, it means you can trigger this card over and over every time you play one. Sometimes over the course of a game, Blight Paladin can take out 4 to 5 troops. And it's for this reason that if you see it, you should take it. Now, a big part of what makes this deck so powerful is stacking Deathcry effects onto one card and then triggering it with Blight Cultivator. When it comes to this, there are really 2 cards you want to look out for. The first is Bug Out. It is a 1-cost wild action that will give a troop Deathcry, summon a Cadaver Beetle, which is a 3/3 wild troop. What this means, of course, is that for 1 cost, at some point down the line, when the troop dies, you'll get a 3/3 to replace it. The second card that you'll be looking out for is Blight Bestowed. This is a 2-cost blood quick action that gives a troop a permanent +2 attack and Deathcry, draw a card. So naturally, when the troop dies, you'll draw a new card. So piecing all this together, let's see how this would shake out in a good scenario. On turn 2, we play something like a Blight Fiddler, which is a 2-cost 3/1 with Deathcry, Fate Weave. On turn 3, we are able to attack with our Blight Fiddler, and our opponent does not block. So we from our hand play Blight Bestowed, giving the Fiddler +2 attack, and Deathcry, draw a card. Once we're in the second main phase, we can use our last resource to play a Bug Out on the same Fiddler. Going into turn 4, we play our 4th resource and gain our 4th charge. This is important because the champion we are choosing for this deck is usually going to be Plagueroot the Hollow. For 4 charges we can give a troop Deathcry, summon 2 Blight Blossoms. So we use that on our Fiddler too, and now the Fiddler is a 5/1 with Deathcry Fate Weave, draw a card, summon a Cadaver Beetle, and summon 2 Blight Blossoms. If we then follow this up with a Blight Cultivator, we trigger all of those Deathcries at once and we get an insane amount of value. 3 new troops to the board, 1 to the hand, and a choice of what our next draw will be. Once this is over, we can attack again and our opponent has to choose between taking 5 damage directly or blocking and triggering all of these Deathcries again. Either one is risky because I could have another Cultivator in my hand for next turn. As you can see, the potential power of Cultivator just using commons and uncommons is crazy, and the more you have, the more often you can trigger these stacked Deathcries. As far as additional troops go, I'm looking for things that will make good targets for my Deathcry effects. So, Twilight Cultivator is a 2-cost double blood flying 2/1 that makes a great target for Blight Bestowed. It's an evasive troop, so that means you can really put that extra attack to work, and you can really start to try to make use of the extra damage that Blight Bestowed offers. Plus, it also has a pretty fantastic Deathcry effect that when it's triggered, takes the top card of your opponent's deck and changes the threshold to blood. Essentially a free draw from your opponent's deck. This is a pretty high priority pick for me, but just be aware of the double threshold needed. Another great target for Blight Bestowed is Squirming Terror. This guy is unblockable, so any additional attack you put on him is gonna go to the opponent's dome unless he's removed. And my final pickup would be Blight Bush. It's a 2/2 for 2 Wild Troop that has Deathcry summon 2 Blight Blossoms, and it's great for those extra value cultivator hits. Your usual suite of removal for these shards are also great here. Dark of Night, Cull the Weak, and Battle of Destiny are among the best. Iremore is usually a pretty good pickup too, as it can be used to take out a large portion of the threats you might be playing against. I like to try and find at least one Violet's Attendant for this kind of deck, usually with Skyguard and Steadfast socketed in there to help deal with some of the flying matchups, but you can switch that out in matchups that don't have a lot of flyers for the Blight Blossom gem instead. And finally, I would suggest taking Rotting Chomp Knight when you can. 1 or 2 of these guys will work wonders against a Papagoot or Sting of the Scorponok deck, and they have good stats and the ability to kill runes in all the rest of the matchups. That's all for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts on this archetype on the forums or the YouTube comments below. You can watch my last video by clicking on the left of the screen, or subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the right. I stream nearly every day on Twitch, so feel free to stop by. The link to that is below the video. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.